Finally this week, as Eminem played to a packed Cape Town audience recently, another Detroit native, a little quieter perhaps, was in town, extolling the virtues of font and typography in brand building. Wally Krantz is the worldwide creative director for the Brand Union Agency, and as you'll see, he speaks a lot of sense. I read about you that typography in design really drives your thinking. Let's start our conversation with that. Why has typography become so important in this design field, this design mechanism?
Well, typography is, it's one of those ubiquitous things that is out there that to a lot of people it can be invisible, but there are certain things that you understand through the kind of letter forms that are out there and what they communicate just by how the form is constructed. Like, you wouldn't see a stop sign set in a calligraphic typeface or hand drawn because you probably wouldn't take it seriously. Nor would you see a bank that was set in some typography that was very gestural or too fancy, because you have to project something differently. Every typeface projects a different kind of personality to it. It's like a face. We all have the same kind of structure, but there's the little nuances between them that give them their ultimate personality.
Is there a sense that brands don't pay enough attention to the notion, to the concept of typography?
I mean, a lot of brands pay a lot of attention to it. If you look at like Coca-Cola, like the bottles with the names on the side where they're personalized ones, you know it's Coke. Of course, you have the context that is really helping to kind of tell that story. So a lot of times it's not just the typeface, it's more of a holistic part of it. The type is a key part of it, along with, say, a color. Or, red and that typeface means Coke. If you think of even like street signs, how they are, like just the colors of street signs and the typefaces that go on there, you know that that is going to work, and the context of the environment is what helps you to kind of understand that.
Let's talk about the job that you do, being a creative director in a brand agency compared to an above-the-line agency. How does the discipline change? How is it altered in some way?
Well, because at a brand agency, we're creating a lot of the foundation elements that a lot of other agencies are going to be using, like not just agencies in your region, but around the world. So I think what's interesting and what I like about it is that you're really designing for other people and being able to make sure that what you're creating is going to be adaptable. It's going to be able to grow. It's not just about, say, one specific communication or campaign, because these foundation elements are going to have to be used by art directors and designers around the world working on very specific communications that are very different from the broader sense of what we're trying to create. So you kind of have to be able to design with an approach that is going to allow other people to work with it and allow it to grow. So you can't be too precious about it. And you also have to know that it's going to have to be flexible, but still have that, the consistent part that's going to connect the experiences from a design standpoint and work in anywhere from, a sign to a website to a billing statement, and allow people to be able to make those connections.
I'm not entirely sure whether this is your first visit to South Africa or Cape Town for that matter, but when you look at a city, when you absorb a city such as this, are you also looking at the design element of a city all the time? This is, after all, the design capital of the world this year.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything to you?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think connected to the city itself, one of the things that I live in Brooklyn, I work in New York, I'm from Detroit.
We'll get to Detroit in a minute. Yeah.
Wherever I go and every day, I'm constantly looking at what's going on in the city. What makes it part of the city, and how can you learn from those things, from design cues, whether it's architectural, whether it's signage. A lot of times it's those unintended things that look like design that you actually kind of get some learning from. So I was in Johannesburg a couple of days ago, and I arrived in Cape Town on Wednesday evening. And it was just kind of interesting seeing more the personalities of the cities based on little nuances, down to the style of graffiti that we see on the walls, which is less in some areas than others. But, I guess even how the handmade signs are done, I think kind of brings that kind of personality out, down to the, some of the advertising where you see some, a very kind of a distinct sense of humor is in these that are very different than you see in other parts of the world. And that's kind of one of the things I love kind of collecting and documenting as I...
Okay, let's put two words together now. Let's put Detroit and graffiti together if we can. It's quite interesting because as M&M is leaving Cape Town, Wally Krantz arrives. So it's a confluence of Detroit in the city right now. But seriously, has coming from a city like Detroit, an iconic the motor capital of the world,
yeah.
has that influenced your thinking in terms of design in any way?
Well, it's a lot of things. I mean, there's the Motor City, it's Motown.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it was growing up in that environment where my whole family was connected to the auto industry. One side of my family, my father had a storm window and door factory, and then there was Motown, the music. So music has played a big role in things that I've done because, you know, as a young person, you see record sleeves, and those are the things that are your first association with, probably with design, and creating an identity or a connection to something in an emotional level. So it was things like that where I'd start to see typography that got me really excited about design, which then kind of led me to design school, and that kind of led me into developing corporate identity programs and identities.
Next week, we'll visit the Haas Collective in Cape Town, where maverick ad man Francois de Villiers is savouring his own brand of coffee. Catch us then, and also on Facebook and on Twitter throughout the week. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.
News that moves. ENCA.com.